Good morning to all of you, and welcome to today's function. Before I share my thoughts with you, I just wanted to thank the choir from Pumpkin House for coming and gracing this occasion. In fact, about a week ago, we had a bit of a problem in the sense that most of our Northeast, who are the stalwarts that would sing every year, had gone home because of the early examinations, and we reached a point where we weren't too sure if we would have this tea party really. But it was very kind of the Pumpkin House to come to our rescue. I just wanted to tell them that it's a pleasure having them on campus. Just to put it in very simple words, we read in the scriptures that there are angels up in the heavens. I haven't seen any angels personally, but if there are any angels on earth, it is these children of Pumpkin House. So God bless them, and it has been a pleasure to have them on board. Today I thought I would share with you a certain story which I shall tell you a little bit later. But let me begin by saying that Christmas is a season of love, peace, joy, hope, and faith. It's a season where we share this joy with our family and friends. And how much more meaningful it would be if we can spread this message of joy and peace to those who are in need. This in turn for the many blessings that all of us have received throughout the year. As I was thinking about what story I should tell you as a narrative, so that you would carry a single point with you home this evening as you break for our Christmas vacation, I recently read a story entitled The Lost Wallet, as it is given in your program pages. The story is about a young man who is walking the streets of New York one evening. And as he is walking the streets of New York one cold evening, chilly evening, similar to what it is these days, he stumbles upon a wallet or a purse, as they say, on the road, and he picks it up. His objective is to find who the owner of this purse is. So he looks into it and he finds that there are 3 $1 notes which are very old and crumpled, which don't give him any leads as to who this wallet actually belongs to. So he looks further and he sees that there is an old envelope on which the sender's address and the returnee's address is obliterated, is wiped out. So that also doesn't give him any leads as to who this wallet belongs to. So he dives into the letter, opens the letter and sees that it is a letter written to somebody by the name of Michael, by a lady whose name is Hannah. So the only 2 leads he has are 2 names, Michael and Hannah. Another surprising thing that he found was that this letter was dated 1924, and he had found this letter in 1984, 60 years later. So you can imagine how crumpled the letter was. So the only way he could find the owner of the letter, he thought, the simplest possible way, was to phone the telephone company and ask them if he knew anybody by the name of Michael or maybe Hannah that will lead him to the owner of this wallet. So he phones the telephone company, and the company says that they would get back to him in a short while. And surely in about half an hour he gets a call from a lady who says that she doesn't know Michael, but she happens to know somebody by the name of Hannah. And she said that about 40 years ago, this Hannah had admitted her mother, an old lady there, into a nursing home. And the best she could do was to give this young man the telephone number of the nursing home where 40 years ago Hannah had admitted her mother. So the young man duly called the nursing home and is told by the nursing superintendent that unfortunately Hannah's mother died 40 years ago. However, she said that 40 years later, and ironically, Hannah today is admitted in that nursing home. When I mean a nursing home, not in the classical sense that you and I know, but it is more a old people's home, that is called. So the young man is very excited and he calls the nursing superintendent and says, can he meet Hannah in that nursing home? And he flicks to his watch and realizes that it is 10 p.m. But he's so excited that he says that, can I still meet her? So the nursing superintendent, where Hannah was in that nursing home, she was on the 3rd floor of that very large nursing home, said that around this time at 10 o'clock, Hannah is very much awake and she normally watches television, so you might come over. After he told her why he wanted to meet the old lady. So excitedly, this young man drives to the nursing home, meets the security guard on the way, is received by the nursing superintendent and goes to the 3rd floor, where this now old lady, Hannah, is residing. He goes to her and tells her, I found this little wallet. And in this wallet, I was forced to read this note because I did not know who the owner of this wallet was, and said that it was signed by you, written to Michael. So Hannah, by now a lady of 76, old, silver hair, with glasses, sighs and says that, oh yes, I have written this letter 60 years ago. And she goes on to narrate the story where she says that 60 years ago, as a 16-year-old, she was deeply in love with this young man called Michael, and went on to say sheepishly that he was very handsome 60 years ago, and reminded her of that famous James Bond movie star, Sean Connery. But said that her mother at that time told her that she was too young to think about anything further, that she should end her relationship with Michael. And therefore she wrote this letter to him, a very poignant letter, saying that though she was deeply in love with him and wanted to marry him, her mother just didn't want her to continue with this relationship. And she also mentioned that Michael's full name was Michael Goldstein. So the young man thanked her and said that if he ever was able to locate Michael Goldstein, certainly he would ensure that he go and meet her in the nursing home. This young man, the story says, then takes a lift down, and when he reaches the ground floor, he meets his friend, the security guard, who says, was it of any use meeting that old lady? Was she able to throw any light on who this owner of this wallet was? And he says, yes, he did. At least I got a surname. The surname is Michael Goldstein. And he says, this is the wallet that I'm trying to give back to Michael Goldstein. And to his surprise, the security guard says, I know this wallet. In fact, I have found this wallet 3-4 times. This does belong to Michael Goldstein, who's an old man and who lives on the 8th floor of this very nursing home. And every evening when he goes for a walk absent-mindedly, he has dementia, so he falls out from his pocket, and I personally have handed over this wallet to him 3 times. Cutting a long story short, the narrative says that by now this young man's heart is in his mouth, his heart is beating. And he tells the security that I have to go and meet Michael Goldstein. As he looks at his watch and realizes it's 10:30, but he says, I have to go and meet him. So he phones the nursing superintendent again, and she says, now what is it? And she says, I want to go and meet Michael Goldstein on the 8th floor. Would he be awake? And she thinks about it and says, yes, he's a late sleeper, and around this time he reads the newspapers. So he excitedly goes by the lift to the 8th floor, along with the nursing superintendent, and they see an old man sitting with other men of his age, reading in that reading room of that nursing home. And the nursing superintendent goes in first and gently calls Michael and says, Michael, where is your purse or where is your wallet? And he very sheepishly looks into his back pocket and realizes that it is not there. Very sheepishly says, "Oh, I've lost it again." But she said, "Hang on, there's a young man here who claims to have found your wallet and wants to meet you." So Michael says, "Okay, fine," and he would like to meet the young man. This young man who's standing a little bit behind walks in and says, "Hello, Michael," and says that this is your wallet. So he says, "How do you know it is my wallet?" And he says, "That is because I had to read this letter, though it is not ethical to read somebody's letters." He's saying, "I had to read it." And then Michael gives a sigh similar to what Hannah had given about half an hour ago. He says, "Yes, this is a letter that was given to me by Hannah all those many years ago," and goes on to narrate how he was also deeply in love with Hannah. But when he got this letter, he was shocked. He tried to end his life at that time. However, God willed him to live on. Here he was. And just like Hannah, I might add, Michael also did not get married his entire life. And he went on to add and told this young man that if you ever have any inkling to wherever Hannah is in the whole world, as early as tomorrow I pack my bags and come and you will see her. So very excitedly, but very gently, this young man tells Michael that I know where Hannah is. So he is taken aback and he says, "Let's go and meet her tomorrow." He says, "Why tomorrow?" "Let's go right away. Why don't you sleep on your chappals?" He says, "She's right here in this building." And he said, "May I add, she's as beautiful as she was 60 years ago," with a smile on his lips. So you can imagine this old man along with the nursing superintendent and this young man going down 5 flights to the 3rd floor. The old man, till then, Michael Goldstein doesn't quite know what's happening because everything was happening so fast. So they go down to the 3rd floor and again the nursing superintendent goes in and this young man goes in and Hannah is surprised to see them. He says, "What's bringing you here?" So the young man says that, "Christmas has come early to you, Hannah. Would you like to see your Christmas gift?" And she said, "Sure." Without looking, she said, "Fine." And she says, "There's somebody who's here to meet you." And there walks in Michael. She asks Hannah, "Do you know who this is?" So she says, she adjusts her glasses and can't quite recognize him. But Michael then says, "Hannah," he calls her. And she knows that that's Michael. And to cut a very long story short, the story ends or comes to its conclusion with this young man, the author, saying that Michael and Hannah then walk swiftly towards each other, embrace each other, and that the nursing superintendent and Michael, at that point, with tears in their eyes, decide to give some privacy to this young couple who were being reunited after 60 years. And the story ends with this young author getting a telephone call 3 weeks later from the nursing home saying that Michael and Hannah are getting married and that they would like him to be a part of this marriage. And the end of the story is the narrative which states that the young man said that this was the greatest and the best marriage that he had ever attended. One of the most beautiful moments that he had ever acknowledged or seen in his entire life, which he was grateful for. The reason why I'm telling you this unusually long story, friends, is that we are all conditioned to believe that our life revolves around great moments. But there are many small moments that catch us unaware, with even the smallest gesture making a world of difference in someone's life. And therefore, as we enter into this holiday season to celebrate the birth of Christ with our family and friends, why not spread this message of joy and peace and hope into the lives of those who are lonely, who are in pain, who are grieving, who are in despair, much like Michael and Hannah, and in doing so hope that the year that lies ahead of us is a blessed one for them, as it is for each and every one of us and our families. Thank you all so much for taking the time off from your busy schedules and gracing this function. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.